What is up, you guys? Welcome back to Me TV Reviews. I am your host, Mo, and today, we are back. My heart has gotten a little bit bigger because one of my favorite shows has returned. It is the season 4 of my shows, y'all. Only Murders in the Building is back, y'all. This is season 5, episode 1, titled Nail in the Coffin. Yes, y'all. Our favorite mishmash of septuagenarian millennials are back. I love it, y'all. I'm so excited for this season. It's crazy that they're already at season 5. That's crazy. Of course, we remember the season 1 was Mabel's friend. And then we had Bunny. Then we had Ben. Then we had Sass. Aw, R.I.P. Sass. And Bunny. And then now we've got dear old Lester, our poor friend. So without further ado, y'all, let's go ahead, get into the synopsis real quick, and then we're going to get right into the episode for our guy. Now, the synopsis for this one is, while investigating Lester's mysterious accidental, in quotations, death, the clues lure Charles, Oliver, and Mabel out of Manhattan and straight into some dangerous new, old territory. Okay. Y'all ready? All right, let's go ahead and get into it. So we start this episode off with Oliver reading the obit for our guy. Okay. Now, he's very disheartened because it's only 4 sentences. It tells us what year he was born, where he was born. You know, it was another random sentence. It was a sentence about him being a doorman for 32 years at the Arconia, and then who he survived by. Which I didn't know he had a wife and 2 kids still, around. I thought his wife might have went on to glory and was waiting on him to come to the gates. Okay? But no, she's still around. And so are his 2 kids. I didn't know he had kids either. Maybe I didn't know Lester as much as I thought I did. I'm sorry, Lester. So he's reading this obit, y'all. And like I said, he's very sad because they should have hit him up. Okay? I could have gave them way more than this. Now, y'all know Oliver always be putting himself up higher than where he's supposed to be. So he was talking about him and Lester was besties. Okay, all right. So then they're convinced that this has to be more than accidental, right? I mean, because look at how he was posed in the fountain. How do you randomly get over there by accident and you just slip and fall? That sounds very suspicious to me. So then Howard comes in, and Howard is giving them a play of what's going on downstairs because Lester has decided to have his wake in the lobby. I was like, okay, that sounds real presidential, for your everyday civilian type of person, okay? But he wanted to have all of the people in the building come down, and show their love and support because Lester loved all the tenants in the building. So, I mean, that's very sweet. So they're having his wake down in the lobby, and Howard comes in to give them, like a little play of the room of what's going on. Now, he did say that there was some surveillance footage that was there, but then he was going around asking people, what? I feel like it might have been about the new doorman. And some of them were saying that they would smash him. A lot of them were saying that they would smash him, and then some were saying that they would pass. And then one of them said that they was just, abstaining. So, I mean, all in all, they must think that the new doorman, I believe that's what he was talking about, was pretty handsome. So, anywho, he's kind of down in the glooms because, Jonathan is still out on tour doing his thug thizzle. But unfortunately, he's got these little, in love puppy dogs that's in his apartment. And so he can't be surrounded by all this love and not be receiving some. So he's come over to try to see if he can find a way to appeal to the lovebirds because apparently they're not giving him no attention. Okay, just each other. So Oliver been eating on this cold 5-day-old shrimp or 4-day-old shrimp. And I'm like, boy, you're going to be on the toilet, Oliver. Your stomach going to be hurting. Now, apparently it's okay as long as you keep it on ice. I was like, okay, can you put it in a bowl and put it back in the refrigerator? Like, have you just been refreshing the ice every time it melts? Like, how are we doing this, Oliver? So either way, they talk about that, and then Howard ends up asking him, does he have any more shrimp? And he was like, yeah, I got a whole box in the refrigerator. He was like, okay, big. I'm finna go feed them, and then I'm going downstairs. So, before he left, Howard did confirm that they had ruled Lester's death an accident. There was nothing purposeful about this. Now, of course, with this being ruled an accident, that kind of feel incomplete, right? Because their building is based on murders. So, I mean, well, if it's just an accident, then that means I can be a newlywed and enjoy my wife when she comes. Mabel, you can be a 30-something-year-old out here running Manhattan, okay? And Charles, you can just do whatever you do. So then, y'all, they started looking at him, and Charles is kind of like standing over him, and they're horrified because he keeps wagging this thing in his hand. Y'all, they thought it was shrimp at first, but the closer and closer they look at it, it's a finger. It's a digit. Now, the question is, whose digit is that? And why did it end up with the shrimp? So clearly, this has to be some sort of message, right? Because Charles had forgot to tell Oliver that on the night of Oliver's wedding, he was approached by Sophia Luciani, a mob wife. Okay. Her husband is Nicky, and Nicky has gone missing. Now, he's got some serious mob ties, okay? We don't know where he is. So now Oliver is believing that this might be a message because Charles done turned down her proposal to help her find her husband. And I was like, but why would they put it in your shrimp and not do something to Charles since he told her no? Not you. So that was like, well, maybe this is his digit. We don't know. Or maybe it's Lester's. We got to hurry up and get down there and see if he got all his fingers in. I was like, you know what? Okay. All right. So they get down there, y'all, and they're expecting it to be like a low count for visitors coming to pay their respects. No, baby, that thing is full. It's an overflow. It's like standing only at this point. So down there is so cute because they have like these poster boards, and it's got pictures of every tenant with Lester, like individually, right? So cute. And y'all, Oliver forgot to, of course, leave it to Oliver. He forgot to do the assignment because he said that he had unsubscribed to, like the Arconia email group. I'm unsubscribing to the group chat. So he, of course, their pictures aren't up there. Now, they go over and talk to the wife, and they come up with a plan. They're going to have Charles put it on himself that he's going to try to see if Lester has all of his digits. Meanwhile, Mabel and Oliver are going to talk to Miss Lorraine, who is Lester's wife. Okay. And so, when they go over there and talk to her, Randall is there with her to kind of tell her who everybody is. But in the process, while they're walking over there, we see Lorraine give him a book, right? I don't know if it's a sign-in book, a guest book, or what have you, but Randall is kind of rolling his eyes at this. And he was like, girl, I told you I don't need that. And she was like, well, you never know. He was very detailed, very thorough. You may find something in there that may stick out to you, okay? Little interesting tidbits, just to kind of gain a better rapport with your tenants, right? Because Lester was training him. So they come over, and Mabel doesn't live in that building anymore. She lives on the building across the quad or the court or what have you, right? In the breezeway. And Lorraine is happy to see her and very loving, but when it gets to Oliver, she called him the cuckoo, y'all. Now, apparently, Lester loved birds. Okay, he loved to bird watch. And so Lester gave all of the tenants a bird to fit their similarities, right? And so Lester's bird for Oliver was the cuckoo bird. Always taking. And he was like, what do you mean? I was always giving, and then Howard was right there, and he was like, yeah, but you could never find the time to take a picture with your bestie. Okay. I was like, damn, Howard, already? So now it's time for people to start, going up to the podium and saying all these nice, encouraging words about Lester. Y'all, why is the mayor Michael Key from Key and Peele? Yeah, Toad from Super Mario Brothers movie. So he's up there, and he is there because he wanted to speak some words about Lester, although Lester was a complete stranger to him. He didn't know nothing about Lester. He didn't know when his birthday was. He didn't know none of that. He didn't know his wife. He didn't know that he had some kids. None of it. But he is there because he wants to speak on behalf of, the old guard. Okay? We love people like Lester. Okay? Now he's passing the torch to the new generation. All right? Now, if I need to go speak at other doormen's funerals, I will, because I want to gain the popular vote. Y'all, he is pandering for them votes, okay? I was like, damn, how many more funerals you got to go to? And then it's just like, it's an insert. Insert name here was such a great person, a very good spirit. It gives you that type of vibe, right? So as he speaks his piece and he has to look down at his cards again to tell him who was actually laying in the coffin, he goes on about his way. Now, Mabel gets up there, y'all, and she starts telling these old memories of when she was a little girl who would come and visit her aunt, and Lester would, give her these coloring books and all of that because he knew that she liked to color. Y'all, Charles is over there filling in the casket, trying to feel around for digits. He peeking, just acting a fool, just crying over Lester's body, trying to raise the thing up because he don't have his hands up, like crisscross over his chest. Now they lay him down like by his sides in the casket. Most places do anyway. And so, in the process of him doing that, he had to dry his tears real quick because the mayor came over there and was like, hey, man, ain't you Charles? And he was like, oh, you a Brazos fan? He was like, oh, hell no. No, not that. But I am a fan of the podcast. As a matter of fact, would y'all like a special guest? I would love to come on there, maybe boost my, my people, my supporters, my constituents. Maybe I could come on the show. And so as soon as they get done talking business and the mayor hands him his card, y'all, Charles get back to crying. So Mabel is wrapping up, y'all, and it's a miracle that she held everybody's attention. I was like, ain't no way this is real. This would never happen in real life. But she's holding everybody's attention almost until Charles is finished. And then I feel like her name is Irma. Bonnie's bestie ends up looking over there at Charles and was like, what the F are you doing? And so everybody looks over there and Lorraine was like, is he filling up my husband? Y'all, Charles ended up pulling the watch off of Lester's hand. Oh, I have missed this show. So then they get back to her house and she was like, okay, did you see if there was a missing digit? He was like, well, it's either 8 or it's 11. And she was like, how could it be 11, Charles? And he was like, you don't even want to know. I was like, yeah, the third leg, Lester. So then Oliver comes in and they're like, okay, we have to come up with a plan because Mabel had looked at the photos from Oliver's wedding and they see Lester in the background behind Oliver talking to missing Nikki, our missing mob guy. And so she was like, okay, well, we're going to have to go to Staten Island. And Oliver was like, oh, no. I can't. I can't go there because back in 82, when I was trying to put on this production, I mean, I got a little static, but, or I caught a little bit of help. I caught a little bit of traction. But, for the most part, I couldn't find any investors. And so I had to resort to asking the mob for money. So I can't never go back there. Ask me how much Oliver said he borrowed from the mob. Not thousands. Not millions. $400. Now, I'm sure with inflation, that might have been a couple of thousand back in 82, right? But it's not nothing to be ass up in the river about. That's what he said. So, that was like, okay, well, if you want to stay here, we'll just go ahead and start a new podcast without you for this season. And we'll just get all the fame and glory off of it without you. And so he decided to finally change his mind because what would a podcast be without Oliver Putnam, y'all? I just doing the absolute most. So, y'all, they driving to Staten Island with this doggone severed finger in a Stanley cup. And Mabel keeps getting the urge to try to sip from this cup. I was like, girl, you should have just removed the straw so you wouldn't even, mentally think about it, okay? Why would you put it in the Stanley cup anyway? You could have put it in, a glass cup, and put some on top. Or some other type of a cheaper Yeti, okay? Not the Stanley. Don't do the Stanley like that. And then you're going to have to... I'm doing too much, y'all. But anywho, they pull up to the house and they was trying to figure out how they was going to approach this. And Charles is giving his worst impression of, Italian impersonations. It's awful, y'all. Okay? So they pull up to the house. Why is it the literal house from the Godfather movie? Why? So they get to the door and this guy answers and he's trying to hurry up and usher him in. He was like, I know who you are. Come on in. Hurry up. So they stand there and he's like, hey, yo, guys. Hey, yo, fellas. We got visitors. And so these other 4 men walk out and he's introducing them as his brothers. Now, it gave me New Edition vibes, okay? On Cool It Now. Ronnie, Ricky, Bobby, and Mike. Their names are Tony, Mikey, Vinny, and Braden. And Braden is always the one, a half note that lingers. He always late coming in. He always late closing out. He's the odd man out, okay? But they still love him anyway because they got to. That's their brother. So he introduces all of them and he tells, Mabel and them to sit down. And so they was like, oh, no, it's okay. We've been sitting for a really long time. And he was like, sit down. So they get real rough with them. They start telling them this story that started all the way back in 1970. And they're basically trying to insinuate that because Mabel, Oliver, and Charles told them no, that they're not going to look into what's going on with their dad, that now they got to get a bruising, okay? So they pull this gun out, y'all. And so they start to really panic because why did we come here if y'all just gonna knock us off, okay? We went from cool, calm, and collected to, real rowdy, real fast. And they was even trying to tell Oliver to listen. And he was like, but I am listening. I'm paying attention. I mean, don't you see me looking at you? I mean, they did say that one of my eyes was going lazy. Y'all, he tried to close his eyes. So they pulled the gun out and everybody starts to panic. And then all of a sudden, it went from mob movie to musical real fast. Because the gun that he had in his hand, y'all, it wasn't a gun at all. It was actually a Bluetooth prop. Say what? I didn't even know they made those types of things. So they was like, what y'all getting scared for? You thought this was real? So because they had started panicking, y'all, Mabel was trying to collect herself and she accidentally knocked over the Stanley Cup, right? And out pops this severed finger. And so they looked down there and they was like, is that a real finger? Ah! They started screaming, y'all. It was a whole hot mess, okay? Just lets you know that they are really not about their life. So just as they're telling them about this podcast, that's why they thought Charles, Mabel, and them was up there, because we thought y'all was coming here so we could swap stories about the podcast. So we could get a feature on y'all's, and maybe y'all will pop over to ours, get us popping, in our less populated, what they call it, population. That is not the word I'm looking for, y'all. Group of people, okay? That ain't even the word I'm looking for, but y'all know what I'm talking about. We thought that y'all was going to put us on, basically, okay? And so just as they're trying to clear this up, in walks their mama, y'all. And she was like, look, I done went down to the place that y'all told me to go down to, and they don't have them doggone loaded Doritos no more, okay? She sound real tired. She look real ragged. She looked like she need a few days worth of naps. She just looked real exhausted. So she comes in and she sits down and they basically tell her, hey, we got your severed finger. All you had to do was tell us that you really, really wanted us to work that case. You didn't have to send us a finger for us to get the message. And she was like, I didn't do that. Okay, boys, it's time for y'all to leave because the grown people is talking. Get away from the grown people table. It's time for y'all to go play on your video games. Go make a podcast episode or whatever. Go on about your business. And so they ended up showing her a picture of the picture with Lester and Nikki in the background, right? And so they was like, oh, is that dad? Is that daddy? Is that poppy? Is that papa? And she was like, all right, I'm finna go long. She pulled out a football, y'all, just to get their attention. They like some damn dogs or something. How is 5 of y'all? And y'all act like this. Where the brain cells at? So when they step away from the table, again, she confirms that no, she did not do the finger. Matter of fact, they end up asking her, was that her husband's? And she was like, no, that ain't his finger. She ends up telling them that he was there because they own the dry cleaning business at the Arconia. Okay? And even though Nikki pulls these disappearing acts every now and then, he done disappeared for quite a long time this go round. And I was trying to find him before it got back to the media that we about to go belly up on our business. Okay, that he's a failed mobster who just loves gardenias. He ain't really about that life. And if we were still associated with mob ties, why do you think that my sons would be talking about what happened back in the 70s if we was out here still really living that life? No, we not. Okay? I didn't do it. So she basically told them that she don't have anything to do with it. She don't know where he is. And before she gets too emotional, she ends up sending them on their way. So just know that they have a dry cleaning business at the Arconia, right? So when they're leaving out, Mabel and Oliver kind of go ahead and get in the cab, and she ends up calling Charles back. And she gives him this deck of cards and says, hey, so he always used to carry these around with him, but for whatever reason, he happened to leave them on the nightstand the day that he went missing. And I'm just wondering, is there anything to that? And so she ends up asking him, really pleading for him to try to see what's going on and get to the bottom of it, because they're 2 seconds away from filing bankruptcy. They're about to lose it all. And so she's really depending on Charles and Oliver and Mabel to come through. And so he was like, I'm going to do the best that I can with the little detective skills that I got. But if he's guilty, I really can't do nothing for him. But I had to call them people on him so he can go to jail. And so she was like, okay, cool. Thank you. Now, she did say that her marriage was basically over. And he did his, what they call it, the swagger shimmy or something like that, the Brazo shimmy. Anywho, he was basically telling her, hey girl, you too good for that womanizer anyway. I thought you would have picked something better than that. Come get over here with this hero and lose that zero. So who knows? Maybe Charles might have a potential love interest. I could see them together. She's pretty. Now Charles, he ain't bad looking neither for his age group. I don't know how old she is, but she can't be too far from him. And even if she is, I mean, a decade or two don't seem so bad when you like in your half century at least, So shout out to the older people, okay? I'm on my way. So once they get in the car, they get back to the hotel and to the building, and Mabel is finna get ready to get off with them, and then she remembers she don't live in this building no more. She got to break that habit. And so now Charles is kind of like down in the dumps because we know that Oliver's finna get ready to get on the phone and talk to his lady love, Loretta, who is in New Zealand at this point. She's filming. But, they talk all the time and all of that. So he's trying to figure out where he fits in because Mabel's, she still got her whole life ahead of her. Most of the good years are behind me at this point. And then you're venturing off into this new part of your life where you're a married man. He's losing all the people, around him that are really close to him. And so he was like, don't feel so bad. You're going to figure it out. It's going to be okay. It's going to be fine. So he's sitting in his apartment and he's drinking, right? He pull out this deck of cards and he start going over. And then all of a sudden, he looks at one of the cards in particular because the card starts pulling these paper clips that he's got on the table, sort of like a magnet, right? And so he looks at it through his wine glass, and because of the red refraction on it, he can see that there's a map on this particular card. And so he was like, So he looks at it, he sees a particular number, and he realizes that this is a map of the Arconia. Well, he ends up getting up with Mabel after Mabel done got the surveillance footage from Howard. She's looking at it and she was like, this don't really show me nothing. Now, we do see Lester on there and he's kind of scrambling to get to a particular place, but he looked like he's frantic, right? And so she's like, what is he doing? Because we don't see him anymore after that. So as Charles is finna get ready to meet up with Mabel, Oliver done got off the phone with baby boo Loretta, and he's looking at this picture of Lester. He was like, man, it would be really good. Like, I really did love you as a friend, but it would be really good if the whole building loved you as much as we did. So he ends up grabbing the hat that's in the display case downstairs where they had the wake at, because the wife was saying that he was so like meticulous that he would have been upset because the hat that was in the display case still had blood on it, right? So he grabs the hat out of there and he's gonna get ready to go to the cleaners to try to see if anybody can clean it. Well, when he gets there, it's closed. It's dark in there. Clearly nobody's there, but for whatever reason, he tries the handle, and lo and behold, the handle is open. The door is open and unlocked, y'all. So instead of him going back home, Oliver, out of all the 5 seasons that we have done this detective, amateur sleuthing type of situation, you decide to go ahead and walk your behind in the doggone cleaner spot. Now, this is their cleaning business, okay? So Charles and Mabel are following this map on this card, and they realize that these are all the blind spots in the hotel where there are no cameras, right? And so then he done ended up drinking all the wine out of the glass, so she ends up using some lipstick to color one side of his glasses. And for whatever reason, it works for TV purposes, because if it was like matte, it's like, baby, you're not seeing through that. So it still works, right? And so, or maybe it's just a combination of the two trying to focus on one thing. I don't know, y'all. So anyway, it works for TV purposes, okay? So they end up going to this janitor's closet, and she was like, okay, this place looks familiar. But on the card, it keeps going. She looks for a spot, and she finds like this hidden hatch where you can slide the whole cleaning shelf to the side, right? And it opens up into this underground illegal gambling casino, right? Or maybe it was legal at one point in time. But it opens up to this gambling spot. And so she was like, what the hell is going on here? Now they start looking around, and they noticed that a couple of the tables done been through some things. So clearly this place has been here for quite some time, right? Then she ends up looking at the numbers on the card again, and she matches it to the numbers on the roulette table, sort of kind of like a locker combination, right? So she unlocks it, and then when she does, y'all, they pull out an envelope that they saw on the same envelope that was on that photo that Nikki was seen giving to Lester. They find that envelope, but it's got blood on it. So they know that Lester was down there. What was he doing down there that night? Now, as they're discovering this, y'all, Oliver goes into the cleaners, and of course he's initially asking for service, which we know ain't nobody coming. Then I went home. So he goes back there and he starts perusing because he ended up finding Lester's uniform, right, that they were finna get ready to clean. And so he goes back there and he starts perusing while he's waiting on it to come down, because he done turned the machine on, to get the things moving, right? So he's waiting on it to come down like the doors on Monsters, Inc. But instead of the uniform coming down first, y'all, why did Nikki's dead body come down on one of the hooks? This is a hell of a way to start the season. But that's the way the first episode is, y'all. Pretty good start to the season. So excited to go ahead and get off into episode 2, y'all. This is season 5, episode 2, titled After You. All right, let's go ahead and get into the synopsis for this one real quick. So the synopsis for this one is: a look back at Lester's early days at the Arconia reveal how a young dreamer became a steadfast doorman, sacrificing his future to protect the residents from the building's secrets. Now, I didn't like that part right there. I didn't like that ending, but let's go ahead and get into it. So this episode starts off with Doorman. There are various ones from different buildings that are being interviewed for this documentary about, Doorman and how they uphold a certain standard, okay? We kind of hold the building together. We connect the building's people, okay? And so you've got all of these different doormen telling these different stories about different tenants that they've done all of these amazing things for. It's the little things sometimes that count, but also sometimes the big things that make a huge difference. Like one of them is just make sure that they have candy for the nannies who watch the babies, right? So they won't be fussy after walks, or, little things to make them happy, like how Lester would have the crayons and the coloring books for Mabel. And then we got the big ones, like this guy delivering a baby 14 years ago. He was like, man, the Yankees should have recruited me the way I caught that slimy thing coming up out of there. Okay, I kept my eye on the baby. So they just have all of these different stories that kind of keep them interconnected with all of the people in the building, right? Because who knows, they might be the only person that have any type of interaction with these people on a day-to-day basis. Everybody doesn't pay attention to other people that are around them, right? Except for the doorman. So the last one that they interviewed before they got to Lester was mentioning how, it's so funny how life happens. Sometimes you have people that come into the building that are new there, and you open up the door for them the first time, and who knows, you may or may not be the last person to open the door for them. So it kind of puts a lot of things in perspective, how oftentimes we take a lot of things for granted when we just need to take time for the little things, okay, and appreciate what we have in others, right? So they get to Lester, and Lester was like, man, it's so crazy because I never saw myself being a doorman. I initially moved here because I had aspirations of being an actor. But then I ended up turning into this doorman for 32 years. And then we get all these flashbacks of, what happened the night that he passed away. So then when it comes back from the intro, which I love the intro, y'all. I love the theme music. We come back from the intro, And we see a young Lester. It's his first day at work, and his boss, and I don't know his boss's name. I feel like his name is George. That sounds about right. His boss is, giving him the ins and outs of the job. Okay, you're supposed to be here at 6 o'clock in uniform. Don't be walking through the door at 6. You need to be here at 6. And then we get all of these different snippets of when Lester comes into contact with a lot of the tenants that have been there for years on end, like Bonnie. Okay, we see Bonnie in her younger years, and he's trying to warn Lester to not interact with her because she plays the numbers every day. Okay, and so he tries to not interact with her, but she ends up asking him, when your birthday? So he was like, May 18th. I was like, that's my uncle and my boo thing's birthday. And so they was like, well, May the 18th, 1948. She was like, okay, 5/14/1948. Okay, thank you. And so then when she's finna get ready to get off, he ends up telling him, hey, you need to make sure that you always say after you, because this makes the tenants feel special. Okay, so it's the little things. You got to pay attention to the little details. And then he also mentions, did you see her coat? And he was like, no. And then so George goes in and he's like, well, that's because she wasn't wearing one, which kind of suggests to him that she may be suffering from hot flashes, which means she's probably going to ask you later on when she comes back to turn her radiator off in her apartment. So it's paying attention to the little things to not only keep bigger incidents from happening, but to also have people learn to appreciate you a little bit more, right? Not just as a doorman, but literally respect you. Put some respect on your title. So we also see different interactions with with Mabel. Mabel's mom was bringing Mabel up there to introduce her to her sister for the very first time when she was a baby. Okay, so when he goes to grab her hand, we see her later on holding his hand after they discover his body. And so we get a lot of back and forth between the first interactions to the last time they see Lester, unfortunately deceased by that point. Okay, so from that to later on, he ends up finding her after she got in trouble by his boss, George, because she was hiding in his closet. Okay, we wasn't playing hide and seek. I didn't have no imaginary friends or nothing like that. I was just hiding. And so he goes to comfort her. It's Christmas time, and so he tries to cheer her up by having her help him put the last ornament on the Christmas tree. All right, so now she's found a forever friend in Lester. Okay, so then we see all these little snippets of them doing things around Christmas time. She's helping him hold the door. She's talking to other tenants with him. She's taking pictures of the other tenants with him, just doing all of these things, right? And so then we also see the interaction with Brazo. Okay, the first time that he met Brazo, and he's telling him, wow, that's so amazing, because it was some girls waiting outside to get his autograph. So after that, he tells Brazo, I'm trying to be an aspiring actor as well. I'm just waiting on my big break. And Brazo, was trying to give him a little bit of advice. It was pretty self-centered advice, very narcissistic advice. But, hey, it's Brazo, right? So then we also see an interaction with Oliver. Okay? Oliver then came up in there, y'all. He just as crooked as the day is long. He came up in there and he clearly saw that Lester was buffing the floors and stuff like that. Y'all, why did he, kind of measure to see how slippery it was and then do a whole easel? Oh, rest in peace to AJ Johnson. Y'all, he did a whole easel. It was like my neck and my back. And he was like, dude, it's just us. And clearly you did not fall. And so he gets up and he was like, hey, man, so, I'd be willing to settle if you can allow the other applications for the possible tenants that was trying to get in here to disappear. And so Lester was like, okay, I'll see what I can do. And I don't think Oliver was really expecting him to say that. So it's just the little things. Any way that I can be helpful right now. I might not be able to do as much as you want me to your extent, but I'm going to do what I can to help you out. Then We also see the first time he meets Rainey, his wife. Okay, so after he had got through talking to Brazo for the first time, George was like, yeah, it's a homeless lady out here causing a ruckus. So he goes out there, and I don't know if this is the same instance or not, but he goes out there and we hear this lady singing, y'all. Beautiful voice. Like, the acoustics around that building are insane. Just imagine, like, if Jennifer Hudson was out there, or like an opera singer or something. Absolutely gorgeous voice. So she's out there singing, and he goes up there and he talks to her, and he sees that she's got a stroller. She's got 2 babies in there, and she was like, I usually have to sing them a lullaby and take them for a walk just to get them to go to sleep, just to have them, do a nap or whatever. And after that, the rest is history. Okay, they end up, and we see them as the years go by, them having lunch together in the courtyard, and then them getting married in the courtyard by the fountain like he had told Oliver. Y'all, it was just so beautiful. Just so beautiful, right? So then we see another interaction with his boss, George. And like I said, it's around Christmas time. George comes to the door, and he ends up collecting an envelope from somebody that we don't see, right? And so, they say, Merry Christmas, George, give him the envelope. And so George opened up this envelope, and he counting ducats, right? And so Lester was like, hold up, man, I know you ain't holding out on me. What you got going on? And he was like, you don't need this. You don't need this. You finna go out there and be a big star. And Lester was like, man, all right, whatever, George. You just don't want to give me no money. So it's clearly whatever money he took, this has to be either hush money or something has been going on behind the scenes for way longer than anybody expected. But maybe this is also what might have potentially gotten George in trouble. Maybe he, got into a sticky situation, and this is why Lester may have possibly had to take over because of blackmail or something like that. I'm just throwing out my theories. Okay, so we'll see what happens. But yeah, I thought this whole episode is just highlighting how good of a person Lester is, and how good of a doorman, or how great of a doorman he became, right? Because of the small things that he did to make everybody's lives around him just a little bit better with what he would do. Lester is definitely coming into his own, okay? He is connecting with the tenants. He is developing his own relationships with them and knowing what they need before they even ask for it sometimes, right? So, case in point with Bonnie. He mentions how nice of a day it is outside, and he'll be sure to have her radiator turned off by the time she gets home. And then, y'all, Howard's mama is coming in there. And, Howard is pushing her in a chair. Now, the first time they met Lester, Howard was making all these snide little comments about, trying to come out. But his mom was like, what you say? Times were different back then, y'all. Times were different. But she's still pushing him, even though he's come out to her. She's still pushing for them grandkids. Okay? And Brazo, the last time we saw him at Christmas, that didn't work out. He didn't get that role that he was going for in Gladiator. It was between him and Russell Crowe. And he always said, Russell Crowe wasn't going to win that. Well, now he's up for another audition. Okay? This is his third callback for National Treasure. It's between me and this guy named Nick Cage or something like that. But he ain't going to get it. And Lester was like, yeah, sure he's not. You gonna get it because you are a national treasure. Yeah, sure, you're right. And then next thing you know, Uma, I don't know why we want to call her Irma, but Uma and Bunny done came through there because they need Lester's help. Now, apparently, somebody done came through there and they trying to push up on all the pretty ladies. So Lester has to come to the day, and he's got his crank. I forgot to tell y'all that, of course, by this time, things have changed dramatically within the Arconia, and they have replaced that old elevator that has the crank on it, like the ship on Titanic. Yeah, they done replaced the elevator crank with one that has buttons. Okay, so they ended up giving it to Lester, and he pulls his crank out whenever the ladies need him, and he was like, as long as I'm here, this crank, which is a piece of Arconia history, is always going to be here with me. So sweet. So then after he done saved the day, y'all, George comes in there, and the elevator has been put up, and Lester is frantic because he feels like his job is not going to be needed any longer. Okay. And so he's pleading to George to go ahead and keep him on because now he's married. He's got these babies. He got to start saving and thinking about their futures. And he was like, man, you're not going nowhere. It's okay. I called you to come over here because I need you to meet somebody. And so he introduces him to Nikki. Nikki Karch. Y'all, I'm not even finna catch Emilio. There you go. It's like a Pokemon almost. So he introduces him to Nikki, and he gives him the news that he's finna get ready to retire. So he wants Lester to be his replacement. And he was like, I know you could use the money. Now, apparently, I guess he figured Lester done gave up on becoming a mega superstar. Okay. So he was like, oh man, thank you. This is great. So he ends up asking what the job details are. And he basically told him, keep your head down, open the door for the people, and just try not to pay attention to what they got going on. Now, everything that's down there ain't all by the book, but ain't nobody getting stabbed today, okay? Ain't nobody getting hurt. I just need you to let people in. So he was like, all right, cool, I'll do that. So some time done went by, and Lester done started to grow his mustache, and he done got a little older. Them black peppered colored strands of hair done now turned salt gray. Okay, salt white, salt gray. And now it's time for him to be trying to pass the crown on to somebody else. All right, and so it's his anniversary. And he wants to celebrate with his wife, but unfortunately, it's a Saturday. And this is when Nikki has all of his unsavory guests come down and do whatever they do for Lester to collect his money in his envelope. Okay? So he was like, hey, man, it's my anniversary. I was trying to see if I could go ahead and take the night off. And Nikki was like, man, I love. Congratulations, man. But it's Saturday, so that's going to be a hard no for me. But you know what ladies love more than Saturdays? They love Sunday brunch. They do. I said, yeah, but it's not the same. And clearly you can tell that he don't value Sophia like that, because if he did, then he would understand and be like, you know what, man? It's all right. Everybody should be in line. I'll get somebody else to hold the door tonight. Like, you ain't got a goonie or two that could open up the door. Okay? But no, he was like, that's okay, take her to Sunday brunch. You can't leave until I tell you to go. Because then Lester had told him, hey, so I'm really thinking about going ahead and stepping down, relinquishing my spot. It's been a pleasure. And he was like, man, you don't leave until I tell you to go. Them kids that you talking about is in college. Remember how they got there, because I keep giving you these envelopes. That's how they getting through college right now. Okay, so just remember that. So now Lester has been put in a tight spot, y'all. What is Lester going to do? So he ends up getting called up to Oliver's place because Oliver is down in the dumps, y'all. He's depressed. Roberta done left him, and now he don't know what to do. He got some flowers sitting on the table that's been neglected because Roberta done took all of the vases, y'all. And so, he's down in the dumps. He was like, hey, man, can you run me some bath water? And Lester was like, that's going to be a hell no for me. I can't do that because it's a little too personal. But, I mean, listen, this ain't the end of the world, okay? And as a matter of fact, if you take these flowers up off this table and put them in a little bit of water and sunlight, it'll bounce back. They'll bounce back just like you will. And so Oliver was like, man, you know what? You right. I'm so glad you here. And he was like, well, turns out after today's events and news that I just received, it don't seem like I'm going to be going anywhere anytime soon. Poor Lester, y'all. And then another little snippet that I caught that I thought was so cute yet bittersweet. Y'all, Maple has found her friends. She's found her friend group. So she had, of course, aged a little bit, and now she's to the point where her aunt's apartment is now hers. And so she's bringing her friends up, and they're probably doing some underage drinking or something like that. They got this box of wine, and she's claiming it's for cooking supplies, and Lester was like, oh yeah, so she was like, you know, if you see anybody else with some cooking supplies, go ahead and let them in and just send them on up to my apartment. So I thought that was so cute. And he mentions how, you know, at one point in time, her only friend was him and she didn't have any friends. So it's good to see her shining bright like she is now. So I thought that was so sweet, y'all. So we fast forward a little bit more. And our guy Lester is bird watching while the girls come in, and they're talking about how nobody ever pays attention to him anymore because they're postmenopausal at this point. All right. Then we see our boy Nicky giving Lester a big envelope, a bigger envelope than what he's used to because it's going to be a hefty night. All right. We also see Howard's mom getting carted out because she has passed away. She's transitioned, and he's consoling Howard. We also see him comforting Charles when he comes back from the casino after he done had a bad night at the casino and he still owes the cabbie some money. All right, so Lester ends up pulling out the money from the envelope and giving them the rest of what's due. And so he tries to encourage Charles that, hey, man, you might just be like Harrison Ford, okay? You might just be a late bloomer. Your time is coming. All you need is one good stroke of luck. And so, of course, Charles has to see the negative in the situation because he's in his feelings, right? And he talks about how he used to be the man back then. He had an action figure at McDonald's that was anatomically correct. He was having threesomes before threesomes were a thing, okay? He was the man, but now all he gets are courtesy calls, not callbacks. Life is changing for him. And it can be aggravating and frustrating to get adjusted to getting older, but that's a part of it, right? So Lester is trying to do the best that he can for him. But then we get the alarm going off, and people are being escorted outside because the first murder happens, all right? So then he ends up talking to Rainey that night, and he was like, man, you know, I feel really bad about it because whoever did this had to walk right past my desk. And so she was like, oh, you know, one death in 30 years. It's okay, honey. It's not your fault. Okay? And then we see them fast forward to where now it's 3 more deaths. And so now he's thinking that maybe he should get some help. And so she was like, yeah, maybe you're right. Now it's time. Insert Randall. Okay? And so he's trying to show Randall the ropes, but he's coming in on a crazy week because there's a wedding. Oliver's wedding. And so he's like, you know, let me go ahead and give you this ledger that was given to me a long time ago instead of that Christmas bonus that George should have gave him, right? He got a ledger. So he was like, let me give you this ledger. It's got all these little neat little notes in there and tips about the tenants and stuff. And so he was like, all right, cool. But when you said wedding, do they need a bassist? Because, I mean, I do that and I DJ and, you know, I'm just trying to find my way because I came out here to be a musician, not really cut out for this doorman stuff. No offense. And he was like, well, I mean, you know, before you know it, you blink twice and you're going to fall in love with this building. Okay, it's just something about it. So then we get a separate interview with Lester, and he's talking about how, you know, the doorman is... It's hard to put in words what they do, how they sum up the job, right? But, you know, the building that he's in, they could have got the automatic windows a long time ago, or could have got the automatic doors a long time ago, but they chose not to because they needed a doorman. They wanted a doorman. And what a difference he makes, right? it's hard to sum it all up, what all he does for the building. But once he's gone, I mean, you probably will notice a difference. And so then we see a flash forward of what happened the night that he died. It seemed like somebody was chasing him. He dropped his clanker from the old elevator. He dropped it, and then we see him, it seems like he fell back or he got pushed back into the water fountain. He hit his head, and then, he died. And somebody picked up the clanker piece, so we know that this was not an accident. But before we got to that part, Mabel and Oliver and Brazo were talking about how, it's just so weird that they're ruling this an accidental death because they've gotten so used to having all of these murders in the building. And so Oliver was like, well, he is an older man. I mean, he could just drop dead. I mean, look at Charles. We gonna give him a couple more years. Not us spring chickens. We're okay. And so, Lester sums it up, and he was like, all right, I'm here all the time, and yet nobody still really sees me or cares for what I do, but just know that I feel like I make a difference. Okay. And the people truly do after a while, So, that's that, y'all. And then he hops down and he was like, all right, enough of this yapping. I gotta go. And then Mabel and them were trying to figure out what he always said. And he says, after you. But they still got that wrong, y'all. They still got it wrong. And that's the way the episode ends, y'all. Rest in peace to Lester. They didn't give that man enough credit, okay? He was cut out to be a doorman. He was there through some of the hardest times for them people, through people growing up in the building and, their loved ones transitioning, being there to comfort them and make them laugh and cheer them up. And so, rest in peace, Lester. It was a good episode, okay? Now, they did release 3 at once, but y'all know, okay? I'm going to do 3 and 4 together. Hopefully, they don't do like another triple release, because then I'll be in trouble. But y'all let me know what y'all thought about it. You can reach me at Me and You TV Reviews on Facebook and on Instagram. You can also reach me at My TV Reviews Podcast without the S on the end. I love y'all. I hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your week. And until we meet over the airwaves again. Oh, before I get out of here, y'all, I want to give a huge thank you to all of you guys that continue to come back. Y'all don't know this, but I just hit 25,000 downloads, which is amazing because, like I said, it's just me. And I just come on here and I run my mouth, and yet and still, for whatever reason, y'all come back. So, I love y'all. I really, really do. And even if you don't, write in or whatever, the fact that you continue to come back and share the podcast with your people, or you laugh along with me, or you be like, yeah, girl, or hell no, Mo, you wrong about that. Okay. Whatever reaction you give, I'm just glad that you're here. All right. Hopefully I make your day a little bit better. I love y'all. Thank you guys so much. And until we meet over the airwaves again, I am Mo, and I'll talk to you guys soon. Bye.